3 different people, 3 different places, and one curse that moved like a shadow hunting for a new name to claim. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. Tonight begins the first of 3 cursed nights. It started with a man who thought a weekend alone in an old cabin would clear his head. He didn't know something already lived there, waiting for someone to hear its name. The cabin sat past a line of black pines, far from the road and even farther from anyone who might hear a scream. Owen liked that. He wanted quiet. He wanted stillness. And when he stepped inside, the place felt exactly that, silent, untouched, almost frozen in time. But the air had a sweet, rotten smell, like wet leaves trapped under something heavy. He told himself old cabins always smelled strange. It didn't matter. He unpacked, made a fire, and tried to enjoy the night. But as the flames rose, the wood hissed like someone whispering through their teeth. He leaned closer, thinking maybe he heard critters trapped in the chimney. Then he heard it more clearly. A breath, a dragging breath, and a soft word that didn't sound like English at all. He backed away. The fire crackled, and the whisper stopped. But the air felt thicker now, as if something unseen shared the room with him. His chest tightened for a moment, the way it does when someone stares at your back. He checked every corner. Nothing moved. Nothing looked out of place. But the smell got stronger, sweet and swollen, like fruit left to rot in the sun. He went to open a window, but the latch stuck. When he pushed harder, the glass shook. Something on the other side tapped back, once, then twice. He froze. The tapping slid across the pane, as if a fingertip traced a line toward the frame. Owen stepped away slowly. When he turned toward the door, he saw something new on the floor beside it, muddy footprints. They led from the outside to the center of the room. But there were no prints leading back out. He hadn't heard anyone come in. He would have heard the door. He would have seen someone walking. Yet there the prints were, dark and wet, as if something had climbed right out of the earth and wandered around his cabin while his back was turned. He followed the trail with his eyes. The footprints stopped beside the fire, right where he had heard that whisper. A sudden creak broke the silence. The floorboards behind him dipped, slow and heavy, like someone putting weight on them one step at a time. He didn't turn. He couldn't. He felt warm breath on the back of his neck, damp and uneven, as if whatever stood there had lungs full of mud. He bolted out the front door and ran into the trees. Cold branches slapped his face, but he didn't stop. He didn't even look back. The breath followed him, louder now, ragged and hungry. He reached the small clearing where he'd parked his truck, but when he grabbed the door handle, it felt warm. Too warm for a cold night. He pulled open the door. Inside, on the driver's seat, sat a clump of mud shaped like a handprint. The smell hit him even harder now, thick and syrupy. Something touched the back of his leg. He spun around. Nothing stood there. But the mud on the ground bubbled as if something underneath were shifting. The bubbles burst one by one, releasing a faint whisper. The same word he had heard in the cabin. The same voice. He jumped into the truck, slammed the door, and hit the gas. The tires spun in the wet dirt. The whisper crawled up through the floor, slithering into the pedals and the steering column. He felt it tug at his hands, trying to make him turn around. He forced the wheel straight, yelling, begging the truck to catch traction. Finally, it lurched forward. The whisper followed until he reached the road. Then it stopped. The smell faded. The night felt empty again. Owen didn't go back for his things. He didn't look at the cabin as he drove away. But halfway down the highway, he noticed something strange on the windshield, thin streaks of dirt sliding upward against the wind. He wiped them with the back of his hand. The streaks spread like veins. More of them appeared across the glass, rising toward the roof of the truck. He pressed harder, trying to clear them. The veins pulsed. He hit the brakes. The truck skidded and stalled. The veins pulled tight, and the glass cracked from corner to corner. Something pushed from the outside. Mud squeezed through the crack like a living tongue, dragging itself across the dashboard. He kicked open the door and stumbled out. He watched the mud withdraw, sliding back across the windshield like it was being reeled in by invisible fingers. Then he heard it again. The whisper. But this time it came from the trees along the road. Branches bent as something heavy moved between them. Leaves shook as if a large body brushed through. The whisper turned into a low moan. Then he saw two dark shapes stepping onto the shoulder. Not human, not animal. Tall figures made entirely of dripping earth, their forms shifting with every slow step. Their faces were hollow, but their mouths stretched open as if gasping for breath. The sweet smell rolled out of the woods. It wrapped around him, pulled at him. Owen didn't run. His legs gave out. The ground beneath him softened. Mud covered his shoes, then his ankles. The shapes stepped closer. One reached out with a long dripping arm. The mud around him thickened, rising to his knees. He screamed for help, but the night swallowed it. The figures leaned down, and the whisper filled his ears, deep and warm, like something whispering from inside a grave. Then the road went silent. The next morning, a passing trucker found Owen's vehicle abandoned. The windshield was cracked, and the dashboard was covered in streaks of dried dirt. But Owen was nowhere on the road. They only found his footprints leading into the woods. And next to them, a long trail of something else, as if two large shapes had dragged themselves out of the trees to meet him. Night one ends, but the curse is far from finished. Owen vanished into the woods, and something followed the trail he left behind. Story 2 begins when you're ready. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe before we dive deeper. Are you ready for the next cursed night? The curse that swallowed Owen didn't stay in the woods. It found another way out, clinging to the next person unlucky enough to touch what he left behind. Welcome back to the Black Hour Stories. This is the second cursed night. It takes place far from the cabin, far from the trees, and nowhere near the road where Owen vanished. But curses don't stay put. They cling, they follow. And sometimes they hitch a ride on things we don't even notice we're carrying. Lena worked the early shift at a small gas station off the highway. She liked the empty mornings, the smell of coffee, and the steady hum of coolers behind her. But the best thing was the lost and found box, filled with random things customers forgot. Gloves, sunglasses, a single boot, and once a wallet full of expired gift cards. She always joked the box had a better social life than she did. That morning, she found something new on the counter when she arrived. A highway worker must have dropped it off overnight, a small plastic bag holding the keyring. The metal was bent and scratched, and the attached truck key looked like it had been dragged through gravel. A folded note sat under the bag. Found by mile marker 11, nitrogen monoxide sign of owner. Lena shrugged and tossed the bag into the lost and found box without thinking. But as it fell in, she smelled something strange drift out of the box. Sweet, heavy, like rotten fruit in an attic. She wrinkled her nose and leaned over the box. The smell vanished. She shook her head and got on with her day. But every time she passed the box, she caught that same sweet scent, as if it clung to the edges of the plastic bag. A few hours later, a customer pointed something out. "Ma'am, your floor's wet." She walked around the counter and saw muddy footprints leading toward the back hallway. Big prints, barefoot, too wide and too long to be human. They ended near the supply door, but the door was locked from the inside. She checked the handle, dry, cold. No one could have walked there. No one could have left without passing her. She stared at the prints. The mud glistened like it had just climbed out of a river. She grabbed a mop. But when she touched the first print, the mud stuck to the mop head like glue, thick and stringy, stretching before snapping apart. The smell hit her again, sweet, syrupy, and wrong. She dumped the mop and stepped back. The lights above her flickered twice. Then the cooler hum stopped. The store went silent. Too silent. She heard something drip behind her. A slow, steady pat, She turned. Mud slid down the wall near the lost and found box. It oozed from the top edge, running in long lines toward the floor. Lena stepped closer. The smell tightened her throat. The plastic bag inside the box twitched. Just once, like something inside it took a tiny breath. She backed away fast. The bag twitched again. Then it swelled, as if an invisible hand were squeezing it from the inside. She grabbed her phone, but the screen froze on a loading symbol. The signal bars dropped to nothing. A sound came from the box. A faint whisper, almost like wet leaves rubbing together. She leaned forward, trying to hear. The whisper grew louder. It shaped itself into a word. Not English. Not anything she recognized. A thick, slurping syllable pulled from some place deep underground. Mud bubbled up around the box edges. The plastic bag rose inch by inch and tipped onto its side. The keyring slid out, covered in a thin layer of moving earth, as if tiny fingers were kneading it. Lena stumbled back. The keyring jerked forward across the counter, dragging a slimy trail behind it. She screamed and ran to the front door, but the metal bar stuck. She pushed harder. The bar groaned but didn't move. Behind her, she heard the lost and found box hit the floor. The contents scattered. Something heavy crawled out. She didn't turn around. She slammed her shoulder into the door. The frame rattled. The lights flickered. The whisper grew louder, now mixed with a wet, ragged breath. The door gave way. She ran into the parking lot, slipping on gravel. When she turned back, she saw the mud pushing under the door, seeping through the cracks like a swarm of black worms. It spread across the concrete, gathering into two slow-rising shapes. Her engine coughed as she tried to start her car. She slammed the key again. The engine caught. But before she could shift into drive, a shape emerged from the store doorway, a tall, dripping figure, its head tilted to one side. Mud poured from its mouth. Another shape followed it, thinner and twitching, its limbs bending wrong, like they were still learning how to use a body. Lena floored the gas. The car leapt forward. She didn't stop until the store disappeared in the rearview mirror. But the smell stayed. It filled the car. She rolled down all the windows. It didn't matter. The smell grew stronger, as if the thing in the store had climbed inside with her. At the next stoplight, she reached for her phone to call 911. That's when she saw it. Mud on her sleeve. A long smear shaped almost like a handprint. She brushed it off, shaking. But more mud appeared on the steering wheel, then on the dashboard, then on her jeans. It bubbled up between the vents, oozed between the buttons, pooled under her feet. She threw the door open and stumbled out, gagging on the sweetness. Cars honked as she ran across the street toward the open field behind a diner. Mud trailed from her shoes. She looked back. Her car windows fogged over from the inside. Something smeared the glass in long strokes. A face-shaped smear pressed against the driver's side, then another, and another, all sliding slowly across the surface. She turned and ran toward the field, but the ground softened under her steps. The earth sank inches at a time, sucking at her feet. The whisper returned, louder than ever, coming from under the soil. She tried to yank her legs free. The ground pulled harder. Something cold wrapped around her ankles. Not mud, fingers. She screamed and dug her hands into the grass, clawing at the ground. But the earth swallowed her deeper, to her knees, then to her waist. She felt breath on her back, hot, rotting, hungry. The last thing she saw before the ground claimed her was the abandoned gas station keyring sitting above the soil, perfectly clean, as if placed there on purpose. When police searched later, they only found her car door open and the keys still in the ignition. The mud was gone. The lot was dry. And the field showed no sign of any struggle except a single trail of sweet, rotten-smelling soil leading toward the tree line. 2 nights, 2 disappearances. And the curse is still traveling, still looking for another name to claim. When you're ready for story 3, say continue. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the final night. The curse that took Owen and Lena didn't spread by distance, it spread by touch. Now it has reached its final night, searching for someone new to claim. Welcome back to the Black Hour Stories. Tonight is the third and final cursed night. By now, the thing crawling out of the mud has a path, a hunger, and a name that no human throat can truly repeat. And it has found someone who unknowingly brought the curse home with her. Kayla worked nights at a small roadside motel. Mostly she checked guests in, cleaned the lobby, and listened to the highway hum outside like a long metal river that never slept. It wasn't exciting, but she liked the quiet. She liked the rhythm. She liked knowing nothing strange ever happened there. That changed the night she found a small cardboard box on the lobby counter. No address, no shipping label, no note, just a box, damp on the bottom like it had been set down in a puddle. She asked her coworker about it during shift change. They hadn't seen it. They shrugged and left for the night. Kayla eyed the box for a long time. Something about it pulled her attention, like a soft voice trying to whisper from inside it. When she finally opened it, she found a metal keyring, bent, scratched, caked in thin flakes of dried dirt. A truck key dangled from it. She didn't know it was the same key that had passed through Owen's truck and then Lena's gas station. She picked it up. The moment her fingers touched the metal, she smelled something sweet behind her. The smell of fruit left too long in the heat. She set the keyring down fast and wiped her hands on her jeans. But the smell didn't go away. She walked into the lobby bathroom to wash her hands, but when she turned on the light, she saw muddy blotches on her wrist. They weren't there a second before. They looked like fingerprints, large, spread out, not quite human. She scrubbed them until her skin burned. They faded but didn't disappear. Each print left behind a faint outline, like someone had pressed into her from the inside. Back in the lobby, she found something new on the floor-wet mud leading from the counter to the hallway. Not footprints. More like long dragging marks, as if something heavy pulled itself across the carpet. She followed the trail, trembling. The mud got thicker, darker, almost black. It led to room 6, one of the unoccupied units. She put her hand on the doorknob. Cold. Too cold. Her breath fogged as she turned it. Inside, the room was dark. The smell was overwhelming now. Sweet, rotten, blooming like a dead orchard. Something shifted in the corner. A shape, bulky, rising slowly. Kayla backed out and slammed the door. The mud under the doorframe pulsed once like a heartbeat. She didn't wait. She ran to the office to call the police. But when she picked up the phone, the line was dead. Every button made the same soft buzzing sound, low and wet, like mud bubbling. Her cell phone wouldn't turn on. The screen flickered white, dimmed, then went dark. She held the power button until her nails dug into the case. Nothing. A soft thud came from the hallway. Then another. She turned and saw the lights flicker overhead. A shadow stretched across the floor, wide at the top, narrowing into long dragging shapes behind it. The shadow crawled toward her before she saw the thing casting it. Kayla ran out the back door into the cold night. The highway roared nearby. She sprinted across the lot toward the storage shed near the tree line. Her breath came in sharp bursts. The smell followed her, drifting on the wind, even outside. She fumbled with the shed door. The lock stuck. She shook it hard. It popped open just as something heavy hit the ground behind her. She dove inside and shut the door, pressing her back against it. The shed was dark except for the faint glow from a street lamp outside. Dust hung in the air. Old tools lined the walls. She held her breath, listening. Silence. Then the dirt under the door shifted. Slow. Scraping. Something thick pushed through the crack, black and sticky. The mud forced its way inside, spreading across the floor like a living puddle. It rose in small mounds as if fingers pressed up from below. The whisper filled the shed, the same word Owen heard. The same word Lena heard. A name dragged out in a breath that shook the walls. Kayla grabbed a metal rake from the corner, her hands shaking. She swung at the mud. The rake sank in like she'd hit a bag of wet clay. The mud shuddered but didn't break. It only grew. Two shapes rose from the mass. Tall, twisted figures with bodies that dripped like melting statues, their faces hollow. Their mouths stretched into wide, empty openings. Kayla backed into the far wall. The mud spread, reaching her shoes. She felt it rise around her ankles, warm and heavy. She screamed and shoved herself upward, climbing onto an old shelf. The figures reached for her, long arms dragging behind them, leaving trails of thick earth. The whisper vibrated through the shed walls. The light flickered outside as if the whole world were holding its breath. She saw the keyring sitting in the corner, clean now, not a speck of dirt on it, gleaming like something new. She understood. The curse wasn't chasing people. It was traveling through objects, through things that touched its victims. It wanted hands. It wanted skin. It wanted to be carried to the next person. She grabbed the keyring and hurled it through the small window. The glass shattered. The keyring flew into the trees. The whisper stopped. The mud froze. The figures paused in mid-step, their bodies sagging. Kayla waited, barely breathing. The mud twitched once, twice. Then it collapsed into a sludgy heap, losing its shape. It melted back into the floor until only a thin smear remained. Outside, the night felt quiet again. She climbed down, shaking all over. She stepped out into the cold air and ran toward the road. But halfway there, she stopped. In the dirt near the tree line, she saw something shine under the moonlight. The keyring. Clean, perfect, placed gently on top of the soil like an offering. Then she noticed the ground around it. Fresh footprints, 2 sets, both too large to be human, both leading into the dark trees, as if walking in circles, as if waiting. Kayla backed away slowly. The sweet smell drifted from the woods again, faint, patient, like something holding its breath and listening. She didn't try to pick up the keyring. She didn't even touch it with her shoe. She ran toward the highway, waving down the first truck she saw. When she looked back, the keyring was gone. 3 cursed nights. 3 people taken, and one who escaped only because she learned not to touch the thing calling her name. But the curse is still out there. Someone picked up that keyring. Someone carried it home. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe. New stories drop soon if you dare return.